Hey, dear listeners, welcome to today's podcast episode with a very special guest, Anne Decker. Anne Decker combines her passion for small and mid-sized enterprises, as well as family-run businesses, with deep industry knowledge and insights into deep tech. So basically, bringing the power of innovation to often quite traditional companies. Anne, welcome to Impulse.
Thank you very much, Niels, for the invitation. Happy to be here and talk a bit more about deep tech and innovation and whatever matters today.
Exactly. I'm sure we have a lot of ground to cover, a lot of topics to get through. Maybe just introduce yourself a little bit to the audience, how you got to your current role and also what your current role actually entails.
Yeah. Happy to do so. So I'm managing director of Wattix. Wattix is a company builder founded by Viessmann, the heating company, or very well known for heating. Of course, last year Viessmann was sold to Carrier, a US company, but there's still a big part of Viessmann owned by the family, and this is also what Wattix entails. And partly, I'm also part of the Maschinenraum team. Maschinenraum is a ecosystem business of family-owned companies. So we have more than 75 family-owned businesses who are part or members of Maschinenraum under guiding each other through digital transformation. So they are all part because they are in the digital transformation. This will never end, of course, but they are there to connect, to communicate with each other and to help each other through digital transformation.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Maschinenraum is a very renowned platform in Germany. The focus is actually on Germany, with a lot of small and mid-sized and also family-owned companies being part of that innovation network. And I'd love to get back to that topic as well. But I'd like to just maybe get into your role at Wattix, and maybe can you take us on the journey a little bit, how Wattix started? Because it was actually quite a pioneer, at least within the German ecosystem, when it comes to, I guess, what we call corporate venturing these days. So take us along to the early hours up until where you stand today.
Yes, of course. And Wattix was founded by Max Viessmann himself. So he was early part of the history of Wattix. And in 2016, around-ish, he was back in his family business. So before he was an advisor, worked with PCG, for example, and then he went back to his motherhood, let's say, and became part of the business. And he was especially responsible for digitization and thought about, okay, what's next? What do we need for Viessmann to really make the company future ready? And this was a time when he also founded Wattix, which was mainly a corporate venture builder at that time. So we looked into different fields around heating, which is, of course, then also building, energy, and a lot of different topics around. And at that time, we looked into different opportunities, idea, new products in that field. And we did that for some years until we found out that there is the importance of ecosystem play, let's say. Because, of course, you can build a venture, but everyone knows how much time it takes, how much willingness it takes, how much risk it is, how much money it really takes. And after a while, we said in 2021, 22, let's cooperate much more also with other industry players. And this is also the time when Wattix became much broader, and we said, okay, let's look into also different fields. Let's work and collaborate with different other Mittelstand companies, and where we, let's say, establish the business of 50% is really venture building at its best. So we define ideas, we develop ideas, we do a lot of market research, And out of that, we build businesses and invest into these businesses. And the other 50% need to be collaborative approaches. This can be partly service business, so that we do our work for other Mittelstands companies, that we help them if they don't have the own capabilities to become kind of a venture builder or do venture building or product building. With a big focus on tech. This was always our discipline. We are builders, let's say. So most of my colleagues and team members come more from the tech side, engineers, developers. And the other part is then doing collaborative business building. This can be a product that different players in the market need, and they do that jointly. It can be with a different risks that comes, but this is where we developed ourselves into. Of course, on the one hand, to have kind of a risk sharing, and the other hand, to really have this ecosystem play to understand what's really needed, and to provide capabilities to others.
Okay, so really coming from being a pure play venture builder to now being maybe a bit of a hybrid. On the one hand, still building ventures, but then also collaborating or also consulting other companies on that journey. That's where you stand today.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about how your approach to venture building has shifted over the years? If you look back to early approaches to how you do it today, have you seen a big evolution in your approach?
Yeah, I think we always had a revolution, evolution, whatever you say in our approach, but we also see that on the market. I would say in early years, we try to invest a lot of, let's say, playing money. I would just call it like this. So we said, let's test a lot. Let's look into different fields. Let's put some money on it and see if it works. And to be honest, I'm still also, I still think that this approach is a good one if you have the money, because it gives you really freedom to think and freedom to really think out of the box and look into different markets. And there are things coming out of it. But what we also seen that it really takes a lot of money and a lot of capabilities to get to a point. And we developed ourselves then more into finding the right problems with partners. So our partnering approach, as I said before, with the ecosystem, but especially also is it with other startups, is it with research institutes, for example. We try to collaborate much more to get earlier to a point where we identified problems, real market problems. And then also this, I think, is another lever. I think before we looked into the wide future. So it was okay to say, if this business model will run and get some first return on investment in 5 years or 7 years or 8 years, no problem. And we developed ourselves more into, we need earlier market traction. We need to see if it works or not. And this is also what I see on the market, that the venture builders, which are still there and which are, let's say, working more on the core, they start to look more into this 3-year, 4-year period and to get first ROIs, because it's quite necessary to see customer attraction, of course, on the one hand, but the willingness to really spend this huge amounts of money is also not even more there on the market.
Okay. When we started actually with our venture building activities, I think we could say that really after, we carved out Greyhound New Ventures as an innovation unit from the mothership, let's say, late 2021. That's really when we started also actively building ventures. And we really started with that kind of, innovation lab approach, where we would basically look for opportunities in a very much lab setting. And then really had the ambition to then, set up project or venture teams and then really fund these teams all the way through early stage and into maybe a kind of a growth phase. And I think we quickly learned that this approach was not promising. It was too myopic, so we were too much involved with ourselves instead of really being out in the market, and it was just super capital intense. It's very expensive, and so we then had several iterations where we came to the conclusion that we want to kind of flip it around, and yes, we still look for opportunities in areas that we know well, so meaning in adjacent to the core business, but then very quickly bring in outside entrepreneurs to do the whole incubation, and then also just basically send them into the race for capital. So while we are then willing to fund a pre-seed and seed ticket, they do need to find other investors, and so we really try to kind of find a setting that's very much market tested from the beginning. I think that's very, very important. And then we offer certain advantages, but it's pretty much at arm's length. So I do think this is a much more promising approach. And in that scenario, we then also do often partner with other, could be corporates or could be maybe, other technology partners, etc. So that's been a big kind of shift over the last years. Maybe talk a little bit about where you at Wattix then also work within the network. So, I mean, do you do venture building then for other companies, or is this just more kind of innovation advisory role?
No, company building work. And it's, let's say, two parts. One is always like being a sparing partner, because there are still also Mittelstands companies who found their own businesses and place former employees sometimes have worked like 20 or 30 years in the company. And then becoming a founder in it. And we are kind of sparing partners. So what we do is guiding them through the new world of becoming an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur at first hand and then an entrepreneur. And being their sparing partner, because actually many Mittelstands companies don't have the capabilities of what it means to build a new company. Is it like in legal terms, in financial terms, also like what it means to be a founder. And this is, let's say, some sparing we give. And then it can also be technical developments that we support tech teams in a newly founded product line or a startup from a corporate. And it's from like working agile, doing good sprints, to how do you take decisions, for example, because in corporates it sometimes really takes a long time, as we all know, and there's still a gap between like how to work agile and how we really work in the end, and this is let's say habits and work routines and so on, what we also try to bring in. And next to that, we also do research projects. So, for example, with conglomerates of different companies, and we do that since years, because for us it's always quite kind of interesting, like what's next in the industry. For example, still in the energy market, what's coming next? What are the new developments? And this is also where we put some of our capabilities in the daily work life.
Maybe just to linger a bit in the area of, when you build ventures together with other companies. So, I mean, how does this usually start? Are they already bringing maybe a kind of intrapreneurship program to the table, and then you just, help them to really, set up a venture setting and kind of help them to get started? Or are you beginning earlier in this journey and really advising them on how to approach maybe more general open innovation? Talk to me a little bit about how you find each other in that process.
Very different, really depending on the company. I would say, let's say like 60-70% come with an idea and maybe a first smaller prototype. And this phase I actually like, because then they're, or seem to be, maybe we call it like this, quite clear of what they want to do, or they're already working on something and they have their own knowledge and you can challenge them. But through this challenging in the first place, we always do like our quick validation and challenge a questionnaire when we start like a first then conversation with these companies. And often you realize then, okay, maybe it was a good idea, but not the best idea, because they forgot to research or to speak to customers or to speak to other market players. It can be like everything. Sometimes you really just figure out when talking to these people. The other 30% are starting from the very beginning. So especially like Simon, my co-lead, and I talk to managing directors who don't have an innovation unit, but they have the endeavor to really do change and to think about something that will change their own business model or be kind of an adjustment to it. And there it's more sparing. It's more what could it be? What should it be? How much investment do I need for it? Is it really like the old way of doing venture building, or is it something different? And I think what is super important, and what I also realized over the last year, in our field of work, there always needs to be change. And of course, it's something that sometimes doesn't feel quite comfortable. But as agile as we need to be and as flexible to take decisions to not work anymore on an idea or a prototype or a venture, it always needs also to be the fact of how do we establish these innovation units, what or this venture building units, what can it really bring to a company, and why do we do this? And with the development of the economy, with the testing of different fields, you will see that some things work and some things don't work. And some companies are really good in what they do, and they build the best ventures, and some fail, and that's also okay. But the continuity is change, and this is something that I try to bring in also to when giving guidance or when talking to leadership of companies.
I mean, you with Wattix and also, we here at Greyhound Ventures, we both went through that journey, right? Of, let's say, trying an approach and then really learning how to improve it going forward. So basically, when you help companies set up their own venture building activities, I'm guessing you try to give them the latest insight on what you find works, and of course, it depends always on who you're dealing with, what their capabilities and also what their resources are. But generally speaking, how, observing then your clients, I mean, how do they deal with the fact that, venture building just remains a kind of high risk and high resource activity? And maybe you have some examples of, cases where you're allowed to talk about it, which you find maybe particularly interesting or promising.
Yeah, I think what I realize today, and really talking about the last months, is that many companies underestimated the risk that it really takes to build a venture and to found a venture builder. I think we had this years in 21, 22, where there was a lot also of capabilities to test and to do things. There were different units established. And today I have more conversations about, should we really do that anymore, or is it better to transform? And I always say, let's really be very rational and look at what have you achieved. And there's always something that you achieve. In the end, it can be culture or supporting transformation. There's always something that you have achieved with innovation. But the question is, in the end, if you are a venture builder, have you built ventures that really last on the market? And if not, then there needs to be a different decision. And this decision can be, of course, to stop. But for what reason? The question is, has the company a clear goal what the company wants to be in the future? So if we talk about a Mittelstands company, medium-sized company, I always ask, like, what do you want to reach with innovation, with corporate venture building? Why did you start that? And sometimes I hear kind of insecurity, let's say, because people are not so sure why they really started. Was it like just a test of the market, or they really figured out, okay, it didn't work because it was maybe not the best idea, or it was a time or whatsoever. And then we discuss what can be next. And what I see at the moment is, of course, AI is a big topic. Everyone is talking about AI. Many innovation and venture units are developing themselves and becoming more an AI-driven support system for the corporate. This can be something if you have tech people and good knowledgeable people in that field. The other field that I see is spending more time in venture clienting. So using the power of startups, which are already in the market, or good entrepreneurs, and finding ways to collaborate with them. And I think these developments are super fair and important after asking yourself, what do you want to be, and what do you want to reach with innovation and venture building?
I mean, it's interesting that you mention exactly those kind of, let's say, thoughts and developments, because we actually have been through a similar transformation actually just very recently. So,
Okay.
we started, like I said, back in late 21, early 22 as a real venture builder. And we have built up a portfolio of companies, a small one. We've also had, numerous failures where ventures didn't take off, or we had to, basically abort, which, we knew what we were getting into. But of course, then once you're at that point, it's still a challenge to accept defeat and then move on. But, also if we look at kind of the macroeconomic situation, I mean, there's a lot of pressure in the markets, especially being invested quite a lot in the construction industry in Central Europe. It's a challenging market. And so we actually just recently decided to expand our offer also to corporate venture clienting because, we understood that, being able to understand maybe the language and also, the speed of startups and then being, the kind of gatekeeper to help bring innovation from the startup community, from the startup ecosystem into our organization. This is really something that we, first of all, can do because we have the right skill set. And second of all, it really then helps to infuse innovation in a very pragmatic and practical way, and really helps us to address very near-term needs in a kind of low risk and low cost way. So we've added that to our offer as a corporate venturing unit, and this is really, we're just at the very beginning of this process, but already we see that our colleagues within our group, they're very open to this. They're very curious because, again, it's something where we can really help them here and now with their business challenges. So that's something that we've learned and we've taken up, and I'm sure you see similar trains of thought, similar developments.
That's super interesting, and I think it's a really good way to go. Sometimes I wonder if like venture clienting is now really the next thing, and everyone should do it. But I think what you also just said, that you differentiate and you have a risk differentiation between like building digital products and then having a venture clienting approach, which is really like short term supporting also the corporate. I think that this is a really good one. And what I just face is that many corporates are still struggling to find a good entry point, let's say. Of course, there are, again, consulting companies on the market who help them to find the right businesses, who have good startup platforms and so on. But the question then is, of course, how to collaborate with these startups. should we have shares? Should we just have a pilot that we do together because it helps both sides to become better? I think these are the important questions that need to be answered. And there are great examples on the market, companies who already do that. In Maschinenraum, for example, we have WEPA, which is a company from North Rhine-Westphalia in the paper business, and they are quite good in it and have 3-4 really good cases. But still, the question is, how long does it last, and how do we find the good entrepreneurs and the good startups? And there need to be like capabilities built to look into these fields. But I find the development really good. And I think there are markets coming together who fit together. And I don't know why we didn't do that in the past. So I really like the development.
It's funny you say that. I sometimes ask myself the same question, but I think we started with a different ambition to really create these future avenues for new business, right, going forward, and that was a heavy lift. So I think there we've toned down our expectations some, and like I said, really shifted towards a very market tested approach. And now we're looking kind of for the lighter lift, but also the quicker win. And so we'll see. We'll see, Anne. We can maybe talk again in 6 to 12 months, and I can then share how things are going. Something I try to ask most people that really come from this corporate venturing background, again, maybe some examples. Do you have like your favorite kind of corporate venture where you say, this, was interesting to see how it got started, and now you can actually really kind of see it being successful in the market?
Yeah, I have one venture that I guided over the last year, or maybe it's already 2 years, which is really like my best example for now. We all don't know what will happen in the future, but they started as a corporate venture. It's called FlexFi, and they do electrification of walls. So you can, for example, put lamps or even a TV on a wall, and it directly works if you have the right plug-in and the right wall. It's a really nice system, and this was founded by DAW. In Germany, we say like DAW, Deutsche Alpinwerke. It's actually coming from they're doing colors, and they're well known for that site, and
paints and coatings, huh?
Yeah, and coatings.
Exactly.
So it's a typical German Mittelstandsbusiness, and they found out why not doing different stuff with walls, but they also found it out. If we do it in our company, then this business will fail because we don't have the right sales staff for it. We don't have the right capabilities. Maybe we also don't have the right money to really support these founders to make a business out of it. And then it was kind of a process, of course, also for the owners. But they said, okay, if you really want to do it, and there were 2 people out of the business working like more than 15 years with that company, I said, yes, I want to do it. I still want to be close to the company, but I will found this business. And now they have a team, and they got external investment. So the corporate is still involved, but they also founded other investors coming from Mittelstand fields, and the fields fit to their own field. So it's quite a good ecosystem, let's say, of partners who support now the business to grow. And I think just yesterday or a day before, I saw that they launched also their product at the Samsung World of Light, and had the chance to present their startup there. Does it mean that now like all big players already work with them? Of course not. This is a venture clienting approach. So they found different partners who are interested in the system, who want to give them the chance to test and to show to their customers. And it develops with this also market visibility and feedback. And they are now around a year, I think, on the market. They close very to their end of the MVP round they are already able to sell, and this will increase the next months. And I think it's a really good example how corporates, if they have a clear strategy, if they know what they can and what they can't do, support their own venture building activities.
Yeah, well, that sounds very promising and kind of almost like an ideal setting. How did they handle the whole equity situation between, the corporate, the founders, and then the external investors?
So the founders hold most of the shares, and this is, I think, also very special. And it was really a way to go. We discussed it over weeks, I would say, because it was not quite normal, also for their company and their also these different daughter companies that they already had. But in the end, we said, if you want to have a running system and business and people really feeling responsible for it, then it needs this kind of a structure. And now it is kind of a normal startup on the market. It has kind of a different investor. The founders hold most of the shares. And I'm really in favor of these approaches. So when I talk to Mittelstands companies, I can understand like any perspective. And you need to find out, is it something you want to reintegrate into your business because you are the one who want to sell it in the end? Or do you need other market capabilities? And then I would always say, give the founders the right to do it and trust them to build the right business.
Look, I mean, I think that's a very good result. And we also learned on our journey that, if we really want it to be market tested and we want to make it investable, we need to play by the rules that the venture capital market defines. So we then also decided to give, at this pre-seed stage, the founders 80% of the equity, and then, any pre-seed funding, either coming from our side or from us and maybe a third-party investor, we would have to share the remaining 20%. And that really, allows them to be investable all the way to a Series A round. Mm-hmm. And, believe me, we had many intense discussions with our board to convince them that this was the right way, because it clashes with the corporate mindset that always has, always aims for control and for majority stake. And also then kind of the, maybe emotional, psychological side of, aren't we then just giving something away? And really to make it clear that, in order for this to be successful, we need actually the founders to do the real heavy lifting. And that's why it's important to give them a very, fair incentive. And, the other thing is, if you want outside investors, I mean, you need to take the back seat. Otherwise, yes, you will scare them away, because, an outside investor is, of course, very wary of, corporate behavior. And so they don't like to see that in a startup. You need to signal very clearly that you're willing to step back and actually, give the founders the main responsibility, have them take the main decisions, and then gladly take on investors on board, which again bring in, their expertise, their experience, and so that really was a shift of mindset for our board. Ultimately, they accepted it, but I think it's really the most promising way to start a corporate venture, or let's say to release a corporate venture into the wild, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. And still then you don't know what will happen in the future and how market will really be in the end. You already said construction industry is not that easy, also for FlexFi. So they expect different developments as it was before. But they are responsible and they can handle their different partners and see how they can from each angle support them. And I think it's a much better situation as if they would be in one company, just trying to do something that they can't do out of this one small perspective.
Interesting, and also fascinating that you in this case these are founders that came from the corporate environment, right? So yeah, they're, so to speak, intrapreneurs. I mean, people coming from a corporate environment and then really, becoming founders in the startup. My experience has been quite mixed here, and I personally, I think usually people that work in corporates are not going to be good founders. obviously here, and I'm sure there are always exceptions, it seems to be working. But then, just to understand a little bit, what are the characteristics or the personal traits that, make these founders, in your opinion, successful? So what maybe more generally do you look for in founders in the corporate setting?
Yeah. I would say it's really special. And if you ask me, I would always recommend to look for people who already have experience. I would always prefer to work with founders, serial founders, who did their failures on the market. And when we look at young entrepreneurs, I think it's the same as if we would have looked now on these entrepreneurs, these two founders of that company. And here, I think it was a combination of real eagerness to learn and motivation. And one was coming from the tech field, so he was really good in developing that product. And the other one came more from the market sales field. And the combination of these two and the combination of real motivation and eagerness to bring that to a point where this product is like market ready and can be sold. I think this was very special, and you could feel that from the very beginning. I rarely see people who develop themselves so quickly, and they are in their 40s. They have children, and still they gave like everything. I think I talked to them like every weekend, every free hour. They read books about venture clienting, venture capital, how to build a business. They really wanted to learn like everything. And this was a good starting point to say, let's do it, and let's do it with them. And the special thing is, I think they are also open to hand over. They really are eager to build their business, but they are also clear if there will be a point where we are not the right ones, there can be talks. And I think this is also quite special, because they are interested in the thing and not in being rich in the end or whatsoever.
Yep.
And this is something you could feel.
It seems to be a really kind of unusual constellation, and maybe a little bit the exception, the famous exception to the rule.
Yeah.
But interesting then that it's not necessarily clear that this is now their path forward. So is there a kind of return guarantee for them, lying in wait so that they have a bit of a, let's say, a fallback guarantee? Is that the case?
Yes, in their case, there is kind of a, and when I say like kind of a, they got the support by the leadership that they say, guys like you we really need in our business, even if you fail with a company, then happy to have you back. And this was always like the trust in the room from the very beginning. That was quite clear. If I would recommend that to any business, because sometimes you can then create also like a, today it's better to be on that side, next day better on that side. So normally I would really close contracts, but I think this was a special situation. But going forward, other businesses, I would always say there's only one way to go, and you need the power to really look only on that way, and the risk is on your side. So I would do it differently, but this was a special case.
It really seems to be a remarkable set of circumstances. So again, next time we speak, I'll give you an update on our corporate venture clienting activities, and you can give me an update on that startup and to see how things went. And look, maybe just to round it off a bit now, I mean, we've really talked about different aspects of corporate venturing, for sure, quite a bit of focus on corporate venture building and your relevant experiences there. But yeah, I mean, you've been now in this discipline for a few years. And if you look at the overall situation in Germany, let's say specifically, where we have all of these, traditional industries and also traditional companies, a lot of them family owned. And, with the Maschinenraum, again, you have a great platform where you have many engaged members, coming from this cohort. And we see immediate economic challenges, but also looking to the future, we see, very challenging scenarios, on a macro level, be it politically, be it with the security challenges in and around Europe. But then again, also fundamentally economically, a lot of transformation is needed in order for companies to, increase productivity, for example. And at the same time, Germany is very much rooted in the more traditional industries. That's always been the strength. I think the automotive industry is a perfect example for that. And here we also see very clearly that, there's huge challenges ahead. And at the same time, the economy is very dependent on this industry. So what do you think are kind of the headlines when it comes to corporate innovation? Again, in this kind of, mid-size enterprise, which is really the backbone of German industry. What do you see on the horizon? What do you see coming towards us?
I have different perspectives on it, and sometimes have the song title in my mind, Don't Stop Believing, because I think innovation will always be important. And when talking to leadership who say, look, we don't have the capabilities, not the money, we're really in a different and super difficult situation today, we'd better stop. Then I would always say, okay, I understand you, but how should your company survive in the future? What does innovation really bring to your company? And this is something I would love to discuss even more, because of course there needs to be things which need to be stopped. And it's fine to do that. And there are always reasons for it. And I'm always, or I also tell our team, better take decisions than not taking decisions. And this is something good innovation leaders should do. So do it. But innovation always brings, and this is something also corporates underestimate, how much transformation support innovation brings into a company. You have on the one side the learnings you have out of innovation and the way you work. Is it like methods? Is it like tools? Is it like way of thinking? And if you do it right, then slowly it comes into your company. People see what you do. People get a better feeling out of it, and then also integrate it into their own departments and activities. That's the one thing. And I think innovation also brings to think about the future. Is it like critical or not critical? But you always need to have a look into your more 5-10 fields of business. And this is something corporates also in difficult situations never should underestimate how much it can really bring to found or to develop a sustainable business. So this is like the one angle I see. At the moment, I can just support companies who start easy approaches with not too much money. So is it like collaborating with different other corporates? This is also what we see in Maschinenraum, that companies start to collaborate more, to exchange more, to think about like short-term business. And this can also be innovation, right? So you can also say, okay, I have a problem in circularity, for example. There's a solution, or one has a solution. Why not doing it together, testing it together also as corporates and bringing it forward? So where to put the innovation money? This is a question at the moment, not to stop it, but where to put it. And I think we will see different new opportunities arising, especially also in critical times. But my fear is a bit to lose that and to say, okay, it's too drastic, it's too difficult, just let's stop it. I would always recommend to still have a look at it and to still figure out like, where to put the money and why, because out of it, there will be opportunities arising.
Well, look, I think that's very encouraging advice in an environment where we see actually, quite a few companies actually stepping back from the innovation activities and shutting down their mentoring units. So I think this is an important message, to keep it up in any case, maybe resize, maybe rethink your approach, but don't give up on it. keep that door open, and there maybe, yes, then reaching out and collaborating is a way to keep the flame alive, so to speak, because I think, everyone needs to get infiltrated with that innovation virus in order to, start the transformation that's necessary to remain relevant. I think that's, kind of almost a law of nature. If you lose relevance, you simply cease to exist. So that's to be avoided at all costs. So thank you. I think that's a nice a place to end it. But before we do, any call to action on there to our listeners out there? People maybe want to reach out to you to continue this kind of discussion. Where can they find you?
I think LinkedIn is always the best one. I try to post there regularly to show what's going on in the innovation space and be on different trade fairs sometimes. But LinkedIn is definitely the best spot.
And Decker on LinkedIn. And Anne, I hope to see you again sometime soon in Berlin at the Maschinenraum. Thank you very much for your time today. It was great talking with you, and we'll be able to continue our discussion offline as well as then maybe here again online in a few months. Thank you also to our listeners for tuning in to Impulse, brought to you by Greyhound Ventures. Keep innovating, and catch you around the next time. Thank you for tuning in. Bye, everyone.